What kind of stories does your audience love? It's easy to forget that everything can really get boiled down to a story. I love stories. I totally binge Netflix, Hulu. I go to the movies a lot. I go to the theater when I think of it and make the time to do it live. But it's all about the stories. Stories are wonderful. So the question here for you today is, what stories do your audience tell themselves that you can help shift that story for them? Because ultimately, the message you are always able to share with your audience is that the old story can end and the new story can always begin. It is a choice. Your audience, your advertising is you giving people a new choice, where that story that doesn't serve them anymore, the story that continues to cause pain, the story that doesn't help, that keeps people stuck or overwhelmed, that story can start to come to a close, right? The chapter can be ending and a new chapter with a totally new story can start. And that's what advertising does so effectively. Advertising allows you to introduce a new story to your audience and let them connect with that story. And then most of all, we need to connect dots for people, because people are oftentimes so in the midst of their story, right? And some stories are so intense. We all have no choice at the end of the day but to deal with the general death story. People in our lives are going to die. Everyone will die and we will die too. We have to deal with the death story. But if someone's just experiencing the death story, right, that may be a lot of freshness and too much heaviness to deal with, right? But most things aren't quite so heavy. Most things aren't quite so tragic, but they are still legitimate for your audience. Whatever story your audience happens to be telling itself that your product or service directly addresses, we need to acknowledge the fact that your audience is telling themselves the story for a reason. Whether it's an inherited way of looking at something, whether it's a belief system that doesn't really work, but it's the only thing they've ever been shown, whether it's myths that are so common around them that it just makes sense for them to fall into these myths as well. But the introduction of a new story is really where hope continues to spring alive and new possibilities come to light. My goal for you and what I wish for you is that you allow people to know that the old story can come to a close. If you think about the stories that we love most, it is usually someone slamming the door or finishing a chapter on something that really did not work. And the resolution is really the beginning of a completely new story. And there's so many different types of stories in the world. It's so exciting. I love it so much. And you probably do too. But your stories are very specific. Finding out what your audience's stories are, the things that they love the most, are going to help you move everything about your business, your revenue, your income forward so much more quickly. And this really does it also goes back to pain points, but it goes back to transformation too, right? We're never talking about pain points without talking about how moving through those pain points allows a transformation to take place where people get so much more of what they really want. Whether it's in their life, their business, or their relationships, that's the place where your service, your offer is ultimately meeting them. And then you get to take all of the obstacles out of their way and they think, God, thank you for making this so easy for me, but thank you for showing me a better way. That's what your offers and business can do for people. That's the help and service you can provide people. Don't ever forget that, but don't ever forget that it's always tied to story on a very, very deep level.